Well, we're live on TikTok. I don't know if we're live on YouTube yet, but we're probably going to be in a minute. So I gotta set up. I always forget that I have like a bunch of things I need to set up to make this work properly. We're live on TikTok. I don't know if we're live on. Yeah, there it is. We are on YouTube. All right, so I'm a little stressed. I hate doing this. I try to set up these like when you do like books and try to put them online so that people can sell them, so you can sell them online. I always have like a hard time getting these things to work, and it drives me nuts. So I've been working on it's like a notebook for people for their trusts. So it's just been a pain in the ass. That's why I got started so late. I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna bother with it anymore. I'll figure it out some other time. It's just been driving me absolutely freaking nuts. Um, mm. So I think I figured out what the problem is. I'm gonna leave it alone. I don't really care anymore. I'm just gonna move on with my life now. Um, someone sent me, apparently, greetings. Someone sent me a video on X, which I'm not on X. I know I'm not on X, but I know that people are. But they said, "Oh, did you see this?" It was a video of me. I'm like, "Well, of course I saw it." You know, I made the video. But it's funny, like if anyone makes content, you know that you don't generally watch your own content. It's kind of funny. So people ask me questions about things, and I go, I actually don't remember, because I'll make a video and I never watch it again. So I don't remember like everything I said in the video. And if you watch my Rumble channel, I don't edit the videos. They're not edited. I just sit down, hit record, shoot the video. When I'm like, I'm done with the video, I hit stop and then I upload it. There's no editing. I don't, I don't, I'll tell you, like, look, just from trying to upload a book that I wrote, it drove me nuts. I spent the last like 2 hours working on it, and I'm like, I can't even, I just can never get these things right. Like, I just need like someone else to do it for me or something because I just can't handle it for some reason. Um, hey, Buffalo Chicken is here. Good to see you. All right. But there's some interesting stuff we are going to talk about today. All right. If there's any subject you guys want to talk about specifically, we can go into that. But what's interesting is that there are. I was talking about this last night on TikTok, but I'm going to talk about it today, and it's about court cases. Right? I found a court case that says that basically you need an attorney in order to go to jail. Okay. Without an attorney, you can't be put in jail. Now I'm paraphrasing that, of course, right? Because there's more to it than that. But essentially, is what it says. I'm going to show you guys um, what is in here. So, all right, I have the Zoom link. By the way, if you want to watch everything, if you're on TikTok, go over to YouTube and watch it there. But um, we're going to, people in the trust community can join, but that's it. And I think you guys know why. It's because of things that have happened in the past. So that's how we're going to keep it. But let me show you guys this court case I got here. Um, This is called Alabama versus Shelton. Where is it? Where is it? Here it is. There we go. Alabama versus Shelton. Okay. This is certiorari to the Supreme Court of Alabama. Okay. So this Alabama Supreme Court case. Okay. So applying this actual imprisonment rule, the court rejects the argument of its invited amicus curiae, all right, which is like a friend of the court, that failed to appoint counsel to an indigent defendant does not bar the imposition of a suspended or probationary sentence upon conviction of a misdemeanor, even though the defendant might be incarcerated in the event probation is revoked. Okay. So the controlling rule is that absence of knowing and intelligent waiver, no person may be imprisoned for any offense unless he was represented by counsel at his trial. Okay. And that actually comes from a different case, which is this one. Okay. But they're utilizing this concept here. Okay. That's the rule. Absent a knowing and intelligent waiver. So they always ask you, are you waiving your right to an attorney? You tell them, no, I'm not. Okay. Well, then do you want an attorney? Not right now. I'll decide on that later. Right. You see how you got to play this game? And we're going to look up this this case too, because I think this would be a good case to look up. But where is it? Okay, there it is. Yeah, the case of Arslinger versus. Okay, this is the real case. Oh, it's right here. Okay, so it's on FindLaw. All right, now, but this is really interesting. The right of indigent defendant in a criminal trial to the assistance of counsel, which is guaranteed by the Sixth Amendment as made applicable to the states by the 14th Amendment, right? Game versus Wainwright, is not governed by the classification of the offense or by whether or not a jury trial is required. No accused may be deprived of his liberty as a result of any criminal prosecution, whether felony or misdemeanor, in which he was denied the assistance of counsel. In this case, the Supreme Court of Florida erred in holding that petitioner, an indigent, who was tried for an offense punishable by imprisonment up to 6 months, $1,000 fine or both, and given a 90-day jail sentence, had no right to court-appointed counsel on the grounds that the right extends only to trials for non-petty offenses punishable by more than 6 months imprisonment. Okay, there you go. That's right. No waiver, no hammer. They can't slam the gavel on that one. All right, so that tells you right there. This is why when people say, oh, don't get an attorney, don't get an attorney, you don't go in there and waive your right to an attorney, though. You can't do that, okay? Because then you're knowingly waiving your right to an attorney. So you never waive your rights, right? Never waive any rights, really, okay? But, you know, and they go, well, you know, they tried to do that to me a few years ago. I went to court. I think this is in 2021 or 2022. I went to court and the judge told me I was going to be leaving handcuffs that day. And I said, all right, well, you know, I'm going to have to do what I have to do. And he goes, are you waiving your right to counsel? And I said, no. He said, are you waiving your Fifth Amendment right? I said, oh, no. And he goes, all right. And then they did the charges. And then, you know, I was supposed to go to jail, but he didn't throw me in jail. And that's the exact reason why is right there. Okay, so this is a good court case to read. Remember, this is actually a U.S. Supreme Court case, all right, which I actually found it from this case. It was the Alabama versus Shelton, okay? But that was a really good thing. The Sixth Amendment does not permit activation of a suspended sentence upon an indigent defendant's violation of the terms of his probation, okay? Where the state did not provide him counsel during the prosecution of the offense for which he is imprisoned. A suspended sentence is a prison term imposed for the offense of conviction. Once the prison term is triggered, the defendant is incarcerated not for the probation violation, but for the underlying offense. Okay, so that's another interesting thing is that if you're on probation, you don't go to jail for violating probation. You're actually going to jail for the underlying offense. Okay, they're just giving you, like, you're still technically incarcerated. Okay. You're still technically incarcerated. The issue is, though, that they're letting you out. It's like a form of habeas corpus where you're released, but you're under this, you're under the watchful eye. So while that probation is going on, this is the things that you're doing. So what ends up happening is that if you violate the probation, the agreement, you go back to jail to serve out your sentence. Okay. So this is why people have issues with probation, and I don't really like to touch on that too much because it's a depending on your probation stuff, it could impact you differently. All right, But this is the case. This is the Supreme Court case. All right, the right of indigent. All right. Anyway, I wanted to show you guys that. I brought it up last night on TikTok, and we didn't really get into that, but I figure I would share it with you guys today so you guys can see that that is what's going on here. All right. And again, it is also, if you look in, we're going to go to 18 US code. It's like the 4000 somewhere. It's our, yeah, go here. Crimes, criminal procedure. It's in the 4000s. I think it's over here. Was it 43 something? No, 40. I can't remember. $41. No, can't think of what it is. 42. Maybe it's in here. No. No. General provisions, maybe. Nah, I can't remember what it is. It's in this. It's in this. Maybe it's in here. Borough prisons. Oh, maybe this is it. This is it. Yeah, here it is. This is it. It's 4083. Penitentiary imprisonment consent. So everything relies on consent, people. Person convicted of offenses against the United States or by courts martial punishable by imprisonment for more than 1 year may be confined in any United States penitentiary. A sentence for an offense punishable by imprisonment for 1 year or less shall not be served in a penitentiary without the consent of the defendant. And how do they get your consent? You give power of attorney over to somebody else, and then they can say he consents. Right? That's how the lawyers get you. Okay, that's it right there. So not only is it codified, but it's in case law as well. So it's backed by the courts, recognized by the federal by Congress. All right. Everything's based off of consent. I know a lot of people, anyone who doesn't really study this stuff does not know that. Like if you go out into the street and talk to the regular American, okay, and say, hey, everything's based off of consent, they go, no, 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 because they can lock you up for anything. So yeah, but that's called tyranny, right? We call that tyranny. All right. So what are we gonna talk about today, people? What are we doing? Questions, comments, anything? Nobody's got anything today? Such a quiet bunch. Everyone's so shy. I mean, I'll just fine. I mean, if that's gonna be that, I'll just go home. I'll make it a quick day for me. Jeez. Everyone's like, I don't know what to say. My problem is this. This is the problem I have is I would share this link in my Telegram group, except the scammers come in and put up dirty stuff on here, trying to disrupt the lives, right? Because I find that people who join now don't want to talk on here. So, I don't know.
I have a question, but I don't know if you want to touch base on it here or on a 101.
I mean, if it's something you don't want to talk about on here, then don't bring it up. But if it's personal.
Well, I mean, I guess I'm okay talking about it. How would you go about dealing with conservatorships?
In what kind of way though?
So when my children's father passed away, Florida law required me to get a conservatorship over them, and I'm trying to get rid of it.
Oh, okay. So yeah, there's a way to do that. Um, you're like the stepmother.
No, no, I'm the biological mom.
So then what the fuck? Who gives a shit what they say?
Yeah, I mean, that's what they required me to do. And whenever I look over the documents, they just have me listed as a guardian. So I have to tiptoe and ask for permission for things, and I don't like it.
Oh yeah, okay. So well, they put you in a weird predicament. There's no reason to do that in the first place. Sounds like something scummy was going on with these guys, but um, yeah. So one thing is you can always do an abatement on the entire conservatorship, right? Just take it out from underneath, like, well, what authority? The other thing is this was through a marriage, right?
Correct.
So you had a marriage license or a marriage certificate?
Yes, through Florida.
Okay, so that's the power of attorney they have over the marriage. Okay. And now that that's why they're able to put you in the conservatorship because of the power of attorney. That's what that is. So you would do a termination of power of attorney, right? Well, I would do that. I shouldn't say you would. Termination of power of attorney, and then I would address the marriage certificate and endorse it and stuff like that. But we'd have to talk about some of those things. We'd have to talk about privately because some of that stuff we couldn't talk about on the air, especially on TikTok.
Okay, that's fair. I'll schedule a one-on-one with you to talk
I,
about it more.
yeah. Do you have a Treasury Direct account?
I don't think so.
I would suggest you get one. It's going to come in handy for the.
Okay.
That's as far as I'm going to explain on that one. But yeah. Um,
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you, Joe.
you're welcome. All right, so I got a question in here. It says, "What does a show cause letter mean?" Okay, a show cause letter is basically a letter to prove the claim. They got to show that there's a bona fide claim. Otherwise, if there isn't one, there's no case. So you want them to verify the show cause, and if they can't show cause, then the case has to be dismissed. Right? Like there has to be like the cause is a reason. Why are you bringing me into court? What's the harm here? Like who was injured? What's the injury? What's the loss? Like what's going on? Right? That's what the show cause letter is, right? So if there is no cause, there's no court case. And if they can't provide one within a certain amount of time, like they should be able to provide it within the same day or yeah, at least the next day, right? If you're giving, mailing maybe 3 days if they're going to mail it in. But man, if it takes them more than a week or 2 weeks to show cause, they don't have it. It's really that simple. Someone's bringing you into court, whether it be a cop, a prosecutor, or a company, right? If they can't show cause, they got nothing. There's nothing there. So that's what that is. So it's a really good technique, especially for traffic cases, to utilize that because they have a hard time showing cause. Like, well, when you do that, they have to provide proper procedure was done as well, right? But if it's just a claim by a cop, that's not enough, okay? Because they still have to show injury. Have you ever checked out the Civil Rights Act of 1866? Yeah, that turned into the 14th Amendment. That's what the Civil Rights Act of 1866 was. It was a precursor to the 14th Amendment, but then what they did was made the 14th Amendment. Oh, they sent you a show cause letter. Oh, are you suing someone? Sounds like you're suing somebody. And yeah, that's what it sounds like. You're suing somebody, and they want you to show cause, prove that you got a case. So it depends on what the situation is. Or if you're counterclaiming, if you're doing a counterclaim, but if in your counterclaim you're supposed to show cause right away. Otherwise, your counterclaim is just like it's like throwing a baseball with only the binding. It's like empty, you know. You ain't gonna get far with that. You know what I mean? Um, I have to wait for him to text now. I sent the demand for abatement notice. Oh, see, I don't see. Paul, the problem is that I don't get a response quick enough, right? Not a knock on you or anything. I'm just saying, like, it's kind of hard to. So I, all right. So look, guys, I'm gonna show you this. This is reality for me. I have people messaging me like this. All right, and it's not a knock on anybody, but the problem is that he asks a question as if I already knew all the other things that were going on, right? And it's really hard. And I've had people get nasty with me about this in private messages and stuff, right? Don't do what this guy's doing. And I'm not putting you down. I'm using you as an example. But people tend to get really nasty with me when I start saying, "Well, I don't know what's going on." As you can see, I'm like trying to find out what the hell his court case is about, right? And then he turns it around. Well, oh no, they did it to me. Oh, well, I don't know. You suing them? He did a demand for an abatement. Now the question is, what is he in court for in the first place? So I'm not psychic. I don't know any of this stuff, right? Um, so it changes. See, all these questions are important. People get mad at me when I start asking these questions. So, well, what's this for, right? Um, they sent it to him. He demanded an abatement, but now I don't even know what the court case is about still. So, let's see. They said they never got my package. See, I'm still like, I don't know. Okay, traffic court. So you're in a traffic case and you sent them a package. Well, you show so guys, look, and no, I'm glad you did this, Paul, because I want to utilize this time to show people what I go through, right? Constantly in emails and private messages from Facebook, from Telegram, from TikTok, right? This is what people do to me all the time, and then they get frustrated with me, and I'm like, I can't help you if I don't know the situation, like, and this is a real thing, right? Hey, but so he's in traffic court, okay, and then you sent them a package. What was the package? Right? Like I'm trying, you got to walk me through the whole thing. Otherwise, I have no idea. I can't resolve anything if I don't know. All right. But let's see. He's in traffic court. He sent the package. What was in the package? I literally had like a 3 month conversation with somebody, and after 3 months, they finally like, oh, I get what you're asking me for. You want to know what this court case is about? I said, I think that was pretty clear when I said, what's the court case about? The first time you messaged me, and then yeah, he didn't like that. He got mad. Yeah, yeah, everyone said, but don't laugh at him. He's just first he asked a question, which is a good question, but then turns out it was a personal issue for him, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then it was reversed from the way I thought it was, and I'm like, okay. And now he's like, he demanded an abatement. What is this? Is this I don't know what kind of court this is. Is this like tax court? Is this traffic court? So don't laugh at him. All right. He's, it's just that this is what I go through all the time, and this is it's stuff like that that like it slows everything down. Like people, if you want to ask me questions, private messages, go right ahead, but make sure you tell me what's going on. All right. I'd rather have like a long explanation, but don't tell me a whole story. Just tell me like the details I need to know. And some people go, well, my mom got really sick and then this happened. I don't need to know all that stuff. That has no relevance to the case, right? Like, what kind of court case are you in? You're in this case. Okay, what's their claim? Their claim is this, right? And then bang. We go, okay, and what happened on your end? Like, now we can get to that. What's the pertinent details? What happened? Why they bring these charges? So he says he's in traffic court. All right. He sent them a package. We don't know what the package is. Right. So that's where I'm stuck. They said they never got my package. But I don't know. Maybe he doesn't want to talk anymore. I'm still stuck on it though, because I don't know what it was. Uh, well, that's a name. Woe versus Hopkins. Yick Woe versus Hopkins. I know that case. It's funny. He named his TikTok channel that. That's hilarious. Um, but now he's not answering the package. I don't know what the package was, so I can't help. You know, unless the package was the abatement. That was a by accident. Oh, that was by accident. It's BY for by accident, not a purchase accident. I'm a stickler for grammar, but it's important. Grammar is actually really important. I want people to understand that grammar is important. And something I found out, this is interesting because like you have friends and you guys hang out and you guys could be friends for many years. And then when Facebook started up and I started using Facebook and connecting my friends on Facebook, I realized that most of the people I hung out with were not very literate because back then Facebook was only text and everyone was spelling words wrong. There was no autocorrect back then. And I'm like, huh, my friends can't read or write properly. I never knew that because everyone talks fine, right? Um, oh, okay. They were in default for the court not replying to your abatement, denial of corporate existence. I didn't stick around for the new court date. They sent me a show. I bet Paul's on his phone. That's why it's taking him so long to type the stuff up. That's probably what it is. All right. So, you sent them an abatement, right? A denial of corporate existence. Those are two good things to send in. I didn't stick around for the new court date. They sent me a show cause letter in mail. All right. So what you would do is send them send them a copy of the abatement, the letter of the denial of corporate existence letter, and then it's a traffic case. It's quasi criminal. All right. Um, and then what you want, so I would resend that in, but send it with the certified mail number that it was originally sent with to show them that they had gotten served on it a long time ago. And according to the post office rule or the mailbox rule, that they've agreed to the terms, that they agreed to the abatement, they agreed that you're not corporate, that you're not a corporate entity, and that they are in default because the mailbox rule said so. And just because they didn't put it on the docket doesn't mean that they didn't see it, right? That's just them being corrupt fuck faces, really, if you want to get down to it, right? They're a bunch of corrupt dickwads. Like, and someone just did this someone just posted this on my Facebook, on one of my Facebook posts this morning. They showed that they had sent stuff in to the court and that the court refused to put it on the docket for 2 weeks. They waited until after the time passed that he had the time to put it on. And then the day after, they put it on the docket and the judge refused it because it came in late. I said, well, that's just a dick move. They did that on purpose, right? Which is wrong. And this is why people don't get due process. I think you should immediately sue these guys, right? In federal court, the second they start doing stuff like that, sue them. I would just say sue the city in federal court immediately, right away. I wouldn't even hesitate. So you didn't put my stuff on the docket, and I'm suing you in federal court because you're not giving me due process of law. I have a right to due process of law. Okay, everyone has a right to due process of law. And the quasi-criminal courts are the worst courts in America right now. Those are all the little tiny shit courts that people end up going to for traffic infractions and all these, like, the juvenile courts, the family courts. Those are all quasi-criminal courts. They're all bullshit because they offer no due process, right? They switch from civil to criminal on the whim of the judge, right? And then he'll just stomp all over your rights and tell you the Constitution doesn't apply inside those courtrooms, and that's all bullshit. Okay, it's 100% bullshit. It's been pissing me the fuck off for years, and you can tell I'm very heated about it. And I've been doing a lot of work on these quasi-criminal courts lately, because I realized that what you're in is those quasi courts are administrative courts. They just treat everything administratively, meaning that they don't do due process in there. They're just systematic machines going, okay, this, guilty, pay us money, right? Okay, we did this, we did this, we did this, we did this. Now you're guilty, give us money. So it's like, it's a formality to even go in the courtroom. They might as well just send you a fucking bill, right? Make your life easier. Just send you a bill and just waive the whole fucking court shit. That's how it acts. They just do it as a formality, so so that it looks like you're getting due process when you don't, right? Yeah, the talk to text stuff is a pain in the ass. But I'm going to show you guys a couple things. I've been working on this, okay? I've been doing my due diligence. I hope you guys know I do that, right? I do my due diligence. And here's what we're going to do. All right, so first thing is this, okay? First thing, the issues with the quasi-criminal courts are, one, that there is no proper due process. They lack constitutionality. Okay, there is no trial by jury, right? There is no proof beyond a reasonable doubt. There is no freedom from self-incrimination. Okay, there is no protection from excessive fines or forfeitures. All right, there is no right to an impartial tribunal or an impartial judge or tribunal inside these courts, right? It's like it is the one thing the founding fathers were afraid of happening, and here it is, and this is the courts that most people get into, right? Are these quasi criminal courts that have no due process, no trial by jury, no proof beyond a reasonable doubt, no freedom from self-incrimination. And this is where people are finding themselves today. Majority of people only go into these kinds of courts. And of course, everyone goes, well, the system's corrupt. Well, fuck yeah, it is, because they allow that shit to continue. The Supreme Court allows it to continue, but the Supreme Court has stood up for the people, okay, in this case, because it says, right, there's a Supreme Court case that says that they have to give you the full protections of criminal proceedings. Okay, criminal proceedings, they have to give you the full breadth of protections on their criminal proceedings, okay, in these courts. And I'm looking for it right now, actually. All right, here it is. This is one. It's in Winship, and I've clicked on the wrong app. I was trying to click on Zoom to share this thing, but all right, this is it. So check it out. This is the case. This is one of the cases. This is a juvenile. So this kid is like a 12-year-old. Yeah, a 12-year-old boy stole money from a wallet in a locker. Okay. He was found by a family court judge to have committed an act that would equate to larceny if it had been done by an adult. While the evidence might not have been established his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, the trial court judge used the preponderance of the evidence standard that was imposed by the relevant section of the New York Family Court Act. As a result, Winship was charged with juvenile delinquency. He challenged the constitutionality of the standard of proof. Okay. So that's it. That's what happened. So now this is the thing. Determinations of whether a juvenile is a delinquent does not need to maintain all the strict procedural rules of criminal trial or administrative proceedings, but they must retain the core elements of due process. So what they're saying is that in a juvenile thing, so they consider this quasi-criminal, by the way, okay? And this is how the traffic courts are. They're the same way. But they've made a rule that you must retain the core elements of due process, right? Because because it's a juvenile, they're not going to have the strict procedural rules of criminal trial, right? Or administrative proceedings, that all the core elements of due process must be there, okay? Proof beyond a reasonable doubt is a long-standing doctrine in the criminal law that is almost always required by the court, right? Has anyone here ever gone to a traffic court, right? And then the judge go, well, I can see that there's proof beyond a reasonable doubt that you're guilty of this crime. Or is it just sitting there, you and the cop just arguing about what's true, and then the judge just rules in the cop's favor, right? That's what happens, isn't it? That's what always happens. They go, well, I believe the cop over you, so you lose. That's not due process. That's bullshit revenue generation. That's what that is, right? And these courts have taken on the role of revenue generators rather than the protection of the rights of the people. It's an important tool in reducing the risk of error and applies just as meaningful to juveniles as to adults to protect those who are erroneously charged. Juvenile proceedings may be considered to be civil proceedings within the state, but they are essentially criminal trials because they can result in deprivation of an individual's liberty. The purpose of juvenile justice system would not be undermined by the heightening of standard of proof. And guys, I'm going to tell you that this is my big fight. All right, if there's a big fight out there that I want to fight, it's this quasi criminal shit, because this is how they've destroyed. This is it. This is the answer I was looking for when I was a kid and went to jail for talking, right? Inside of a courtroom, the judge yelled at me and threw me in jail for talking. Because someone threw something at me and I yelled back at them. The cops came and arrested me and the judge threw me in jail. Okay? And this is the reason why. These quasi-criminal courts do not want to uphold due process. Okay? So this is Justice Harlan. Okay? The difference between the preponderance of the evidence and proof beyond a reasonable doubt is meaningful. Okay? And I want to point that out again. The difference between the preponderance of evidence and the proof beyond a reasonable doubt is meaningful. It really is. Okay? And it says, even though there is no way to qualify the degree of certainty precisely for each standard, juries generally will be able to understand that they must have a higher level of confidence in their beliefs about what happened in a case if they are informed of the elevated standard. As in criminal cases involving adults, there is always a potential for jury error, and it's more preferable for a guilty juvenile to avoid classification as a delinquent than for an innocent juvenile to be inaccurately classified as a delinquent. So this is the same old principle where they say, it's better to let one guilty man go than to lock up 5 innocent men, right? That's the same idea. The cost of error are substantial, so the procedures used to minimize them should be equally substantial. Even though the deprivation of liberty may be less lasting for a juvenile than for an adult, a finding of delinquency creates a persistent stigma and should not be lightly imposed. All right, so there was a recent issue where some kid went to jail because he went on TikTok or Facebook or Instagram and made fun of his principal. And the judge gave him like a jail sentence for it, right? And this was a juvenile. Well, I was 18 when I went when the judge got that on me. But this kid is like 12 or 13 years old and was thrown in jail for this, right? That's sick. And turns out what the judge was doing was he had a contract with a private prison, and he was, the more prisoners he got, the more he got paid. So he was incentivized to throw kids in jail. And that's what he was doing. Fucking slave labor. He was creating slavery. All right. I think, and that's why judges should not have qualified immunity, because of stuff like that. And if you want to argue with me about that, go right ahead. I'm only hearing about 120 words as he's saying. I'm live on YouTube. Yes. I'm live on YouTube. You can come join on YouTube. How many we got on YouTube? We got about 15 watching on YouTube. So welcome everybody. We got about 5 people in the meeting here. The meeting them in about 5 people, so you guys can say hello. By the way, if you want to be in the meeting, you have to be part of the trust community, just due to all the nasty crap that was going on with the scammers in Telegram, coming in and disrupting the lives with all their perverted crap that they were throwing up on the screen, which would get flagged on YouTube. That was their whole idea, but it didn't actually work. All right, because Zoom didn't allow that video to pop up because I was the main speaker, so it didn't let it come up. So I never got the flag, thank goodness, and it let me know not to allow that stuff to happen. So this is one of the court cases that this is what we're fighting for here. Okay. there's a lot more stuff involved in this. What was the other one? There was the Bloom versus Illinois case. Right. All right, Bloom versus Illinois. All right, so petitioner was convicted in Illinois of criminal contempt and sentenced to 26 months imprisonment for willfully petitioning to omit to probate a will falsely prepared and executed after the punitive testator's death. Right. So this is after the guy who the grantors or the guy who created the will's death. Right. Not technically a it's a will, not a trust. His request for a jury trial was refused by the trial court. The Illinois Supreme Court affirmed his conviction. Okay. But look, this went all the way to the Supreme Court. Okay. In view of the holdings, right, in this court case, the broad rule that all criminal contempts can be constitutionally tried without a jury is re-examined. Now, this is an important thing. They're citing other court cases. I just talked about this the other day. I made a video about it on Rumble. Stare decisis or stare decisis, right? And basically what they're doing is they're pulling up these court cases saying, this has already been adjudicated before. You have to keep ruling in the same manner, right? Now, a lot of people make the argument that they can't do that stuff. And they're right. Doing this is, I'm just pointing this out, that this is something that's wrong with the judicial system, is that they look at other cases and determine if it was ruled like that time, it's going to be ruled that way this time. And that's all part of the fiction of law doctrine that I've been talking about. But this is what they're using. This is what they're using to get, basically they're screwing people over, okay, by using stuff like this, because it perpetuates the fiction of law. In some cases, it can be useful. Okay, there's certain times, like we're trying to create stare decisis in our rights, but they're using administrative procedures to beat people down. Criminal contempt is a crime in every essential respect. Serious criminal contempts are so nearly like other serious crimes that they are subject to the constitutional jury trial provisions, and only petty contempts may be tried without honoring demands for trial by jury. The progression of legislative and judicial restrictions on the unfettered power to try contempts customarily reflects this identity and underlines the need to extend traditional protections to trials for serious contempts. So what they're saying here is that criminal contempt is jail time, okay, or it could be jail time, and that if they put you up for contempt in court, you have a right to a trial by jury under the Sixth Amendment. Okay. So, the judge says, I'm holding you in contempt. You ask him, well, is that civil or criminal? That's criminal. All right, I'd like a trial by jury. What? No trial by jury. Well, Bloom versus Illinois says that if you're going to charge me criminal contempt, okay, that I have a right to a trial by jury. There's your stare decisis right there. Okay, so, yeah, let's do it. So you got to use it against them, right? To the extent that criminal punishment for criminal contempts preserves the dignity, effectiveness, and efficiency of the judicial process, those interested are outweighed by the need to provide the defendant charged with a serious criminal contempt with all the procedural protections deemed fundamental to our judicial system. The power to commit for civil contempt and the punish petty criminal contempt similarly is unaffected. So petty criminal contempt, one thing, right? You ask them, is that civil or criminal? They say, I'm going to hold you in contempt. Is that civil or criminal contempt? Oh, it's criminal. Okay. All right. I demand a trial by jury then. Oh, this is petty criminal. Oh, okay. All right. So let the record reflect that the contempt is petty criminal. Okay. Is that under a common law or maritime admiralty law? And he don't want to talk to you anymore. I'm not answering that question. They won't answer that question. Is that under admiralty or common law, that criminal contempt, petty criminal contempt? Right? You just box them in right there. And that's a boxing, because what you're doing is you're putting them into a corner where they either, you're using the Sixth Amendment, by the way. It's still the Sixth Amendment. This whole thing is the Sixth Amendment. The Sixth Amendment is such a powerful play in the courtroom. Okay, I'm gonna pull it up real quick. I think you guys don't need to see the Sixth Amendment. All right, this is good stuff. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial. Okay, so that's the first thing. I'm gonna stop right there. Quasi-criminal courts will not let you come in and record in those courtrooms, right? But then they tell you it's criminal. Well, it's quasi-criminal, so you don't have a right to a public trial, okay, or a speedy trial, okay, by an impartial jury of the state. Oh, okay, so if we need an impartial jury of the state, oh no, we don't do that here, right? So look at how the quasi-criminal courts violate the Sixth Amendment. First, you don't have a right to a speedy or public trial. You can't record in there, right? You're not allowed to. You have to turn your phones off when you're in there. Oh, no phones on in here. I remember the first time they did that. The cops, I'm in the courtroom. I had no cell phone at the time. I didn't own a cell phone yet. Okay. And I remember they go in there, everyone has to turn their cell phones off. So everyone pulls out their phones and turns them off. This is like Nokia days. I didn't have a phone. I was like, I don't want one of those electronic leashes. Obviously I have one now, but, back then I didn't have one, and the cop came up to me and he says, turn your phone off. I said, I don't have a phone. He goes, everyone has a phone. I said, I don't have one of those. He's like, yes, you do. And he grabs me and starts going through my pockets, and I yell to the judge, I go, he's searching me without a warrant. And the judge says, stop that. He's actually told him to stop. He goes, stop, stop, stop. He goes, leave the courtroom, empty your pockets out, come back in. I don't want your phone on you. I said, I don't have a phone. And then the cop obviously, he went through my pockets already at that point. But I had like at least 80 witnesses in the courtroom showing that this cop just grabbed me, started going through my pockets, and I yelled that he was searching me without a warrant. A Fourth Amendment violation. Right? But the cop confirmed that I didn't have a phone. And, when I went up to address the court later, right? I said to the judge, I said, I know we're here over a traffic dispute, but I have to report a crime to you. I had a warrantless search done on me in the courtroom. He goes, look, I'm not talking about this, all right? But we're dismissing the charges today. Just that's it. We're not bringing that up, and that was it. So they dropped the charges. It was like no registration, no insurance, but they dropped the charges because I called out the cop for violating the Fourth Amendment right in the courtroom, right? But anyway, back to our Sixth Amendment, right? They don't do juries. They won't do a trial by jury or a jury trial in these traffic courts, right? And the district wherein the crime shall have been committed, right? So they do that one. They go, oh, that was done here. Actually, one time I got pulled over by a cop. He was in one town, and we were actually he was from a different town than the town we were in. And I was like, we're in this town. He goes, no, you're not. Nope, we're in my town. I'm like, nope, the border's over there. That's the border over there. I pointed to where it was. He goes, no, it's here. And he had body cam footage. So I got the body cam footage, and I submitted it into the court, and I said, and with the map of the city limits and showing where we were in the video. And the tickets, he had wrote a totally different address on the tickets. And I said, can we actually trust this officer's testimony since it's in complete disarray with or it doesn't align with any of this footage in the video. And they just sent me a letter saying that they decided not to prosecute the case. But they wouldn't rule on any of that stuff. They did, it's called a nolle prosequi. All right, which districts have been previously ascertained by law and to be, all right. So they're allowed to do that, but sometimes these guys will go a little over their bounds, and they're not supposed to do that. So make sure you hold their feet to the fire on that one too. Okay. All right. This also could be territorial jurisdiction. You can always challenge the territorial jurisdiction. Okay. And to be formed of the nature and cause of the accusation. Okay. And that's an important part too. because what this one does here, okay, is it says that you need to understand, like, and that don't get crazy about that word. We talk about comprehension. Okay, you need to understand, like, you need to know what's the nature, what's the cause, right? Like Paul was asking earlier, like, what's the show cause thing? Well, this is part of the Sixth Amendment, is show cause. What is the cause? Is there a cause? No, there's no cause. All right, then there's no complaint. Like in Paul's situation here, um, they asked him to show cause for the default, and his cause is that he sent them an abatement, right, and a letter of corporate denial, right, or a corporate denial of corporate existence, and they didn't acknowledge it, so they're in default. That's that's the cause right there. He's got a valid cause, so he should beat those guys up on that. And but what's the nature? Is this civil? Is this criminal? Oh, it's quasi criminal. Oh, it's quasi criminal. Oh, okay. Well, what part of the state constitution does that come from? Oh, well, we've noticed it this way. So you guys are violating the Sixth Amendment because there is no procedure for quasi criminal courts, right? But it's been recognized by upper courts, so this fiction of law called quasi criminal courts is going to perpetuate, right? But there's no nature. Quasi criminal, right? Even though it does have a long history that goes back to the Magna Carta days, right? They were like, well, these are less severe criminal crimes, right? Um, it doesn't really hold. It doesn't. I mean, if they want to have it, they can have it, but they have to have their own procedures. They should have criminal procedures, civil procedures, quasi criminal procedures. Why can't they do that? I'd be much happier if they did that, because then we wouldn't have this lack of due process. We would actually have due process steps laid out, and then we can actually go and press to make sure that the steps, the procedures, are in alignment with your due process rights under the constitutions. Okay. Now here's the other thing: to be confronted with the witnesses against him, people claiming against you. I saw he did it. He did it. I saw it. Okay. All right. I can confront my witnesses. Right? Did you see it? Are you sure? Right? Everyone, I hope everyone here has watched My Cousin Vinny. All right? That movie, it's a funny movie, but that movie is a great example of due process. Okay? So you can watch it for entertainment, but get an education from that movie. That movie offers education, right? They confronted the witnesses. Okay? Well, the lawyer did, the cousin, right? Like, he got them on the grits. Remember the guy with the grits and the woman who can't see, right? It's like, that's how you confront the witnesses. You have that right. You have a right to compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, right? The fiance, she became a witness in their favor because she understood cars, and she knew by looking at the proper pictures and stuff like that, having the right evidence too, exculpatory evidence, right? Evidence in favor of the defendant, that she was able to determine on her own that they were innocent because it wasn't their car that was making those marks. All right, so to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in their favor. So if you don't have witnesses in your favor, or you can't obtain witnesses in your favor, which in traffic court you almost never do, right? Oh, well, you can't have anyone testify on your behalf. Oh, you can't do that. Oh, no, right? They don't want any of that, all right? And to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. Now, notice it doesn't say lawyers or attorneys. It's just this is assistance of counsel. Counsel could be anybody. Right? It could be your friend sitting there and going, hey, maybe we should do this. Maybe we should do that. He is seeking a declaratory judgment, asking for info. Abatement is to process or merits a specific. Well, no, I think he was using the abatement the right way. I think what he was doing was abating the process, because that is a good way to handle traffic cases. But I don't know, because I think he's on a phone or something, texting on the phone. So it's going to be very limited. Anyway, so that's our Sixth Amendment. Okay, you have the right to counsel, And we talked about that earlier. Like without it and without your consent, they can't throw you in jail. Unless it's like a heinous crime, like a felony, then that's a different story. All right. Or if you waive your rights. But this is what we're talking about, Bloom versus Illinois. Okay. So what this does is this confirms and reasserts the fact that we have even in these traffic courts, we should have the full breadth of the Sixth Amendment and all criminal prosecution, right? All criminal procedure protections given to us, okay, under these types of court cases, okay? So there's another one too. Let's do it. I made a list. Okay. I had a whole list of these because I've been working on this stuff, man. All right. Petitioners Codispati and Langes were tried before a judge in separate proceedings for contemptuous conduct that allegedly occurred during the course of their criminal trial before another judge and were found guilty on each of several separate charges. The judges in contempt proceedings who refused petitioners' request for a jury trial imposed consecutive sentences. Oh, see? They refused their request for a jury trial. Codispati received 6 months for each of the 6 contempts and 3 months for the 7th. And Langes 6 months for each of the 5 contempts and 2 months for the 6th. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court affirmed. You see how the state Supreme Courts will shit on you sometimes too? Okay? They will shit on you. All right? They'll say, we agree with the lower court. And then you bring it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court goes, no, fuck those guys. They're wrong. No. Okay, this court granted certiorari limited to questions raising the issue whether petitioners should have been afforded a jury trial. So the only thing they want to bring up here is whether or not they should have had a jury trial, right? Although a crime carrying more than a 6-month sentence is a serious offense trial by jury, right? An alleged contemptor is not entitled to a jury trial simply because a strong possibility exists. Upon the conviction, he will face a substantial term of imprisonment, regardless of the punishment actually imposed. In the case of post-verdict adjudications of various acts of contempt committed during trial, the Sixth Amendment requires a jury trial if the sentences imposed aggregate more than 6 months. And this is what we're talking about, petty criminal contempt, right? If it's less than 6 months, they consider it petty. Even though no sentence for more than 6 months was imposed for any one act of contempt. Okay? So it was reversed and remanded, right? Delivered the opinion of the court, which is, here's the opinion. Where's the opinion? Okay. An alleged condemned is not entitled to a jury. Okay. We already read all that. Why does this website do this? The need to maintain order and a deliberate atmosphere in the courtroom. The power of a judge to quell disturbance cannot attend upon impaneling of a jury. A criminal trial in the constitutional sense cannot take place where a courtroom is in bedlam. A courtroom is a hollow place where trials must proceed with dignity. Whatever. All right. When the trial judge postpones, it's not really. I'm not finding it in here, but I mean, I think they pretty much laid it out right in the beginning there. In terms of the sentence imposed, which was obviously several times more than 6 months, each contemptor was tried for what was equivalent to a serious offense and was entitled to a jury trial. Okay? So even in that, they have a right to a trial by jury. Well, it says jury trial. And someone's going to say, oh, it's the same thing. It's not. It's not the same thing. But all that contempt, if it adds up to more than 6 months, man, what the hell are these guys doing in the courtroom? These guys screaming and cursing. But contempt, I think contempt is one of the most bullshit charges you could ever face anyway, right? Because of the fact that, it's a violation of your right to free speech. Oh, you can't say that in this courtroom. I can't say that in this courtroom. Oh, you can't say that here. Well, fuck you. You know, like it's bullshit. I can understand if you're disrupting uh, the flow of court, but throwing someone in jail for that's bullshit. I just don't agree with the contempt stuff, right? The only time contempt actually makes sense is that if a judge made an order to somebody to do something for the other party and they don't do it, then I can understand why contempt would be held then. But in the courtroom, like I've been held in contempt saying that I was talking too much. I have a right to be heard. You guys aren't listening to me. One guy, a friend of mine, he went to court and he said that to the judge. He goes, he's like trying to say something. To the judge said, "That's enough out of you. No more talking from you." He goes, "Don't I have a right to be heard?" He goes, "You've been heard already." That's what the judge said to him. "You've been heard already." What a douchebag. Anyway, okay. So what else is going on today? I got about 30 more minutes and I'm gonna head out. So I know we got off to a late start today. I got distracted by all this online sizing stuff. Pisses me off. It's so annoying. But what's going on? What anything else? Questions, comments? Nothing? Okay. Well, I guess I can go early then, huh? We got people in the Zoom meeting. All right. So just so everyone knows, like the people in the Zoom meeting are part of the trust community. Anyone from the community want to speak on it? Nobody does that either, huh?
It's awesome. You should totally join. It's worth it.
Yeah, we're having a lot of fun. We just did something last week, right? Were you there for that? What did we do?
I wasn't. I've been in and out of the hospital since June, so I haven't been to the meetings I think since like July.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
catching up. I'm catching up.
Jeez, that's horrible though. I'm sorry to hear that. All right, well, get better. Mhm. Um, looking for,
Thank you.
I was looking for something. What did we do? Oh, here. Trust documents. There was some trust stuff that I did. What is this? Business trust agreement. We did a business trust. We had, what's this? This is oh no, that's something different. Trust minutes in here. We got trust minutes. Yeah, banking, stuff like that. By the way, I'm working on putting like a little notebook together, like a trust organizer, so you guys can get those and make your life a lot easier with these trust organizers, right? Because I've had that same problem. That's why I got all these notebooks and stuff because it gets crazy. But this is minutes, conveyance of property. Yeah, we did this one. I forgot what we did. We just did something the other day. Let me go look at it. I'm gonna go find it. But we did something really cool, I remember. I just don't remember what it was now. What is this? This. Oh yeah, the trust amendments. I remember what we did. So we did this. I put this whole thing together for the trust community where we do a certain modification to the trust, okay? An amendment to the trust. And then once we do this amendment to the trust, we remove the trust from martial law, okay? and and now what happens is that it modifies the way courts and governments can handle this trust. Okay, like I've done this with myself, okay, with the court system, and some very interesting things have occurred because of that, okay, in my life since doing that, like removing myself from martial law within the United States of America. within the United States, right? But removing myself from martial law has created certain interesting results from that. And which I go more in depth about it in the trust community. I'm not going to really talk about it on TikTok or YouTube, but some very interesting things have occurred because of that. I would, yeah, Paul, I would sue them right away because they're violating due process. Okay. And because they're violating your right to due process, you can sue them. This is, you know, this is the Sixth Amendment. This is the Fourth Amendment. This is the Fifth. Well, maybe not the Fourth Amendment, but you know, you got to sue these guys, man. Like if they didn't put your paperwork in when you gave it to them, well, what are they doing? They're saying that you don't have a right to be heard, okay? That you don't get due process. Due process is whatever we say it is. That's tyrannical. I would sue the city right away. I would sue the city. Just sue the mayor, the judge. I mean, you can't sue them individually, but sue the city, right? The courthouse as a whole, because usually the courthouse like the city is the courthouse, and then you know some other things. It depends on the town. But if you look it up, you'll find out how they're operating. Sometimes the courts are operating under the city. Sometimes the city operates under the courts. Sometimes they're separate entities. So it just depends on that situation. Okay, but if you can find that the court is operating as the city, then sue the city. If the courthouse is operating separate from the city, then sue the courthouse. In federal court, they'll probably tell you can't do that, but I really don't give a shit. I was like, well, you can say I can't do that all you want, but these are the guys. This is the actual true and real party, you know, that is harming me, okay, and violating my rights. You say I can't sue them. Why? Because they have qualified immunity? Fuck, no, they don't. 11th Amendment is bullshit. Okay, so they don't have that qualified immunity. I don't agree to it. Fuck those people. You know, they have to give me due process of law. They're not. I would just sue them. Federal court right away. But that's my opinion. That's what I would do. But yeah, anyone else from the trust community in here want to say anything? We got a bunch of people in here now. Everyone's so shy. All right. I have to do the puzzle piece on TikTok, but it's still loading. It won't let it come up for some reason. Why is it doing that? Oh, it's my Wi-Fi is off. That's why. That's why you got choppy. Whoever was watching on TikTok saying it was choppy, because my Wi-Fi was off. I've been running this thing without the Wi-Fi. I'm so bad. Well, that makes more sense now. Yo, what's up? All right. Well, that makes way more sense now. Now I get it. So TikTok was all choppy. This is why they wouldn't let anybody in. There's like 5 people watching on TikTok. But yeah, there was no Wi-Fi on there. My phone's like heating up too, right? Yeah. Yeah, the link is in the trust community. I don't know why. I'm surprised you didn't come on. I'm like, where's Kansas? She's always on here. But not here. Okay. So let's see. We're doing something with the trust for martial law stuff. We're doing that. That was an interesting little thing. If you don't know what I'm talking about, guys, really got to go check out the videos I did on Rumble for the Reconstruction Acts. Okay, those are really, really important. That and then the Libra Code. That was another one because those things are what's being implemented today. Okay, and it's kind of like a soft version of martial law, but it's still implicated. That's why they have the quasi criminal courts. That's why everything's under admiralty. You know, they're using all these admiralty courts, which the quasi criminal courts are admiralty courts because admiralty courts are civil cases with criminal penalties, right? It's the same shit. literally the same thing, but because everyone was making the arguments about admiralty courts, they started calling it quasi-criminal to hide the admiralty's aspect of the court system that they're utilizing. Okay, what do you think about the idea of surrender the usufruct tools to completely get out of the U.S. system? I mean, the usufruct tools, you can't completely get out of the system. Okay, but because look, you're gonna go to the store. Okay, you're gonna get into a car. Okay, you're gonna converse with people. You're gonna go online. You're gonna be in part of the U.S. system. You have, there's a social security number, there's a birth certificate, even though those things are not you, right? Those things are symbolizations of a sole proprietorship and a trust account, which they're not going to delete from the system, and they're going to always keep it attached to you somehow. You have to learn how to utilize those things in your favor, rather than let it be used against you. You have to understand what those things are and make sure that you utilize them the proper way. Now, I'm not going to say like other people, oh, I don't do that, and that's fine. Everyone finds their own way. And I'm not going to put anyone down for doing it differently, but in my opinion, I think it's best to utilize those entities rather than be the effect of them, right? Like you create and control those things like a chess piece, okay? And you move them around as you please, okay? And know your enemy and know your enemy's games and his moves, okay? And if you can utilize it properly, you can win the game. All right. The usufruct tools are basically, usufructory is basically just using the property of others without to the detriment of the property of the owner, right? So I wouldn't surrender any of those things. I would be using that stuff, and I think that's what she's referring to, is like surrendering those things and to get out of the system, but you won't really ever leave the system. Okay. It's all around you. The only way to leave it is to end it. The U.S. system, I think there's a couple of pertinent things that if we fix, it'll fix the country. One thing is going back to the gold and silver standard. If we do that, the people are no longer sureties. And that clears up a lot of the issues right off the bat. Right off the bat, a lot of these issues get fixed right away. Okay? Like these revenue generating courts will have a harder time doing things because of the fact that they can't generate revenue through fiat currency anymore. Okay? Another thing is getting rid of the 14th Amendment. If we got rid of the 14th Amendment, what would happen is that it would... it would return the people back to the states, okay, and make them the people again, rather than being persons subject to, okay, because that's what the 14th Amendment does, is it makes persons, and persons are subject to, and the people are the ones that the government derives its authority from. So they've flipped the script on that by doing it that way. Now, if they got rid of the 14th Amendment, that would make another huge impact, right? Which would mean that it would eliminate all these court systems operating the way they do, with bypassing people's rights and stuff like that, protected under the state and federal constitutions. Okay. The incorporation doctrine is something that people point out. I've pointed it out a lot. So these are the rights that U.S. citizens have, is under the incorporation doctrine, and the incorporation doctrine uses the 14th Amendment to give due process to people, or give people these rights back under the due process clause of the 14th Amendment. But if you read your state constitution, you already have those rights. The incorporation doctrine is specifically for U.S. citizens, not for state citizens. State citizens have those rights already. So it doesn't even matter. Get rid of the 14th Amendment and your rights are restored. Okay, your rights are restored. And martial law. If we end martial law, get rid of the 14th. By the way, the 14th Amendment is an amendment created under martial law provisions. Okay. Oh, thank you. Yeah, you know what? I'll show that new Hub Pages article. I'll pull that up. Thank you for pointing that out. But yeah, I'll bring it up. I'll show everybody. We'll do a little reading of it. real quick. Where is it? It's the new one. It was published today. When courts ignore constitutional law. Okay. And I'll read this to you guys. I do have a Hub Pages thing. I write articles here and there sometimes. Yeah, we have to show up for each other in court. But those are the things. Put us back on the gold and silver standard. Get rid of the 14th Amendment. Get rid of the quasi courts. All right, the quasi criminal courts. Okay, get rid of those. Just end them. Done. Right? Just say, look, is traffic court civil or criminal? It's civil by nature, so just call it civil. Right? No more jail time for traffic violations. It's bullshit. Unless you hurt somebody, fucking run somebody over. It's not traffic anymore. It's like, that'd be like attempted murder or assault. Right? That's straight up criminal. But they treat like regular traffic infractions like you're a fucking criminal. It's psychotic. It's really just psychotic. That's what it is. It's psychosis. Oh, he didn't have a license. Oh God. What a delirium tremens you guys act like when someone doesn't have a driver's license. Oh God. They act like this guy's like a serial killer. Like, oh, you don't need a driver's license to operate a car safely, right? You don't need your car to be registered every year. Like, you're just giving money to the state. By the way, the state makes about $1 billion a year through revenue from traffic infractions, license, and registration requirements. They make about $1 billion a year. And I sat down and I worked out. I said, if let's say I'm going to play their side for a second and say, if we were to get rid of these requirements, like these yearly things with the traffic infractions and the registration costs that the state's pulling in, how could we fix that so that way the state still makes that $1 billion a year? And I found out that if you were to tack on a 1% sales tax and get rid of the registration fees, lowered all the traffic fines to just civil penalties instead, like $25 for a speeding ticket rather than $500 and 30 days in jail, right? I found that if you just did that one little thing, 1% raise in the sales tax, that what would happen was it would overcompensate for the $1 billion loss in the revenue created by all the traffic stuff. It would overcompensate. They would make more money doing that than they would from that. And I said, well, that's interesting. I said, so what if we got rid of the property taxes? So if we got rid of the property taxes as well, they would lose a big portion of revenue from that. But we don't really care if they're mega rich. So we don't really care. So fuck it. But if you raise the corporate tax by 1%, the corporate property tax by 1%, small little percentage, that covers all the private property tax loss in this entire state. I said, no shit. Look at that. Isn't that really interesting? And it just takes a little bit of math and a little bit of time to put it all together. And I said, well, that's very interesting. So by raising everything, sales tax and the corporate property tax by 1% on each of those things, right? And then getting rid of property taxes as a whole, getting rid of the yearly registration fees, okay, and then minimizing court traffic cases down to civil infractions rather than criminal penalties, and then no more excessive fines. What happens is the state actually makes more money. And then, of course, a smart, intelligent governor who would go in and look at all the programs that his money's being spent on, and then doing a product evaluation, right? So I used to do consulting for companies, and what we would do is a product evaluation. Is what we would look at is you have the final product that the company makes and what it does. And if that product was good, and if it was a good quality product, then we kept it going. But if the product didn't sell well or it didn't produce well, then we would get rid of the product as a whole, or we would reevaluate how to make that product work better, right? So in the case of like a government, a state government, what you would do is look at these different programs that you're implementing and find out, does this program is this program at least 75% successful? If it has a 75% success rate or higher, you would want to keep the program. If it's anything lower than 75% success, it's garbage, right? That means it's a waste. I mean, that's, and people are going to say, that's pretty high, Joe. If it's 74%, you're going to throw it away? Yep, I'm going to throw it away. It's garbage. And you know how much money that saves? That saves billions of dollars a year. It's insane how much money gets spent on programs that don't work, right? A lot of these government offices, what they do is they buy new computers every year. Okay. Um, yeah, we need a consultant. Yeah. Oh, I did. I used to do consulting for companies. So we did like business consulting. I would go into businesses and evaluate how the business is operating and stuff like that. And then we would fix all the things I would find that were off or out and stuff like that. So, but yeah, same thing with a government will work exactly the same way. What's the government's product? The government's product is supposed to be uh, uh, a happy community of people who feel that their rights are protected. Okay, that their rights are protected, and that they actually can save money for their future. Right? They can produce more. They can create more. They can grow from there. Right? Less restrictions on people's properties and stuff like that. That is the product of a real Republican form of government, right? Would be the rights of the people are protected. The people feel that their rights are protected. They feel that they can exercise their rights freely. Okay, that they are not hounded by the government for money. That they're not just a revenue generating, ATM for the government, because that's how they're treating the people right now, as a fucking ATM machine, right? It's so crazy. Um, yeah, let's check under the hood and fix it. Yeah. So that's all. It's really, yeah, it would be awesome, right? Imagine that. Imagine if a governor says, I went to all the judges in the state and looked and evaluated all their court cases and ruled and looked at all the times they ruled against the Constitution. I'd say we're going to just get rid of all these judges. They're all fired. Every single one of them. We're going to fire every single one of them right now. They're fired. They're no longer allowed to work in government ever again. You can't be a judge if you're going to rule against the Constitution. That's it. And we'll make that a mandate within the state. State mandate. Any judge who rules against the state or federal constitution is immediately barred from being working in any government capacity ever again. All right. The only thing they're going to be able to do is flip burgers at McDonald's. They're not even allowed to be a manager at McDonald's. Fuck those people. All right. They say, well, it's not always about the Constitution. It always is about the Constitution. Always. Oh, yeah, I got to pull up the Hub Pages thing. I know. I got heated. I get all heated on this stuff. So don't do that to me. All right. All right. But yeah, it's the same thing, by the way. This is so I wrote this over the last couple of days. I published it today. This is Hub Pages. Okay. And when courts ignore constitutional law. All right. Now, this is just a little picture here, right? Due process office denied in traffic municipal court. So this is what I was talking about. All right. The U.S. Constitution is supposed to be the highest law of the land. Every judge and government officer swears an oath to uphold it. Yet in practice, many courts seem to ignore constitutional rights in favor of enforcing statutes, agency regulations, or revenue-driven policies. Okay. Oh, there's a background noise or something. I don't know. Whatever. Shush. TikTok. All right. This disconnect between constitutional law and practice and the principles written in the Constitution is one of the biggest threats to liberty today. Okay. So I said, well, let's break down how the courts are undermining fundamental rights and why it matters for every citizen. And don't be like, oh, he's talking about citizens. I'm talking about state citizens. State citizens. Chill out, people. Okay. Yeah, I know. They always say, that's not valid in this courtroom. Well, yeah, it's all bullshit. You just don't know the right court cases to utilize to prove your argument. All right. I'm not putting you down. There's more study, but I'm going to put this out there. The Rumble channel is going to have tons of court cases that's going to make these guys shut the fuck up about that nonsense. I'm sick and tired of them saying that stuff. Yeah, I know the statutes don't apply to people. I know. It's not a secret. All right. Anyway, the Supremacy Clause, the forgotten rule. The Constitution is clear. Any law that conflicts with it is void. Courts have long recognized this principle going back to Marbury versus Madison. But in modern practice, unconstitutional statutes and rules are routinely enforced. My Cousin Vinny is the name of the movie. Licensing laws turn everyday rights into privileges. Regulations add endless restrictions on free speech and property use. I'm going to use my guest from earlier who's talking about the conservatorship that she's under for her own natural born children. And I'm telling you that the reason why they put a conservatorship on her for her own children is because of the marriage license. Okay, they turned her right to her children into a privilege. Now she has to do what they say, and we're going to get rid of that garbage too. Can't do that. I feel bad for her. All right, so instead of protecting rights, courts often treat government power as supreme. So when
Hey,
courts,
Joe,
yeah,
didn't Trump write some kind of executive order saying that there's no longer where you can cohabitate if you've lived longer than so many years, you're considered married?
I have no idea.
Okay, I'll look it up.
All right. So when the courts ignore the Constitution, citizens are left defending themselves against laws that should have never existed. All right. Separation of powers, blurred beyond recognition. All right. Blurred beyond I might name a band Blurred Beyond Recognition. That'd be a cool name for a band. Right. All right. The Constitution was built on separation of powers. The idea that legislative, executive, and judicial functions must remain distinct. But today, unelected agencies often write rules, enforce them, and even judge violations. Okay, that's your administrative courts, which I can go into it because I know where it is in New Jersey. But New Jersey, all their administrative courts are those municipal courts, and they call them quasi-criminal courts, right? When courts allow the system to continue, they undermine the very principle that prevents tyranny. The result, government overreach becomes normalized and accountability disappears. Quasi-criminal courts, due process on trial. One of the most glaring failures is in the so-called quasi-criminal courts, traffic, municipal, and administrative hearings. Right? Due process is essential whenever life, liberty, or property is at stake. Okay, but in practice, these courts deny jury trials. All right, shift the burden of proof onto the defendant and operate under vague administrative rules. You see, this is the shit I'm talking about. Citizens face fines, license suspensions, and even jail without the full protection of criminal due process. Traffic court, municipal court, and many administrative hearings operate as quasi-criminal courts. These systems look official, but deny essential protections. Jury trials are often unavailable. The burden of proof shifts onto defendants. Procedures are vague and stacked against the individual. All right. Everyone here relates to that, right? Everyone's here can relate to that. After 7 years, it's considered a marriage in Illinois. Yeah, yeah, that's common law marriage. Yeah, except the punishments are real. All right, the fines, license suspensions, and even jail time. This is a textbook example of due process violations in traffic court and beyond. Okay. A judicial review, avoided when inconvenient. Judicial review exists so courts can strike down unconstitutional acts, but many judges avoid using it when it threatens government revenue or entrenched practices. All right, like we're going to take the right to travel. You know, I talk about that one a lot. Cases like Shuttleworth versus Birmingham affirms the citizens may exercise rights without a license. Yet in modern traffic cases, judges routinely dismiss these arguments as frivolous. Remember, someone brought that up over here. Okay. This selection of judicial review turns a constitutional safeguard into an illusion. Magic. Okay. Sickos. All right. Equal protection applied unequally. Equal protection. Some people more equal than others. Right. The 14th Amendment promises equal protection under the law, but courts apply it inconsistently. Laws often discriminate between residents versus non-residents, licensed versus unlicensed individuals, corporations versus private citizens. Okay. Instead of demanding strong justification, many judges rubber stamp these classifications. The result is unequal treatment despite the promise of equal protection. So even under their own 14th Amendment bullshit, they still don't even uphold equal protection, right? Well, if you're a non-resident, we're going to do things differently. Well, why don't you treat everybody like a non-resident then? Because non-residents seem to get a lot better, you know? That's why I'm a non-resident. Right? I'm a non-resident and alien to the 14th Amendment. All right, the illusion of rights. Perhaps the greatest failure is how courts treat rights themselves. Instead of recognizing them as inalienable protections against government, many judges treat rights as privileges granted by the state. Want to travel? Get a license. Want to work? Get a permit. Want to defend yourself? Pay fees and register. Right? You know, The guy goes over to someone's house, says, yeah, it's going to cost about $8,000 to fix all this up, but we're going to make this beautiful again. And your living room is going to be much in better shape. He said, but I'm not allowed to start working until I get a permit. You don't have a right to fix somebody's house? This is bullshit. All right, this flips constitutional law on its head. Rights are supposed to limit government, not depend on it. So the reason why this matters is the Constitution is meant to protect citizens from government overreach. But when courts enforce unconstitutional statutes, ignore due process, and apply equal protection selectively, our freedoms are eroded. Non-resident alien. It's not alienate yourself. It's called non-resident alien. It's a status. If you're a state citizen, you're considered a non-resident alien to the IRS. All right. So what can you do? One, you have to know your rights. This is the big thing. This is why I say watch the Rumble channel, because it teaches you your rights. Your rights are laid out in there, right? Understand what the Constitution actually guarantees. Study the Constitution, the state constitution, the federal constitution. Learn about those things. Read the Federalist Papers. I'm going to start making videos about the Federalist Papers too. All right, because there's a lot of explanation to the amendments and stuff like that in there, and to the constitutional provisions are actually in the Federalist Papers, which the Supreme Court should be utilizing on making rulings, but they don't. But stay informed. Share knowledge about constitutional rights in everyday life, because the uninformed public is the easiest to control. Right? Everybody here knows that. Right? Everyone here listening right now, I hope, knows that we know that the uninformed public are the easiest people to control. Okay. Yep. Yeah. That's how you win. You win these cases using the state constitution. They won't recognize the federal constitution, but they'll recognize the state constitution, beat the crap out of them with it. All right. But look at society. Look at, like, perfect examples, TikTok. I've seen so many people saying so much stupid stuff on TikTok, and I'm like, it's all mind control, because these people are totally uninformed about life, right? Totally uninformed. All right, until judges return to the basics, that unconstitutional acts are void, that due process cannot be waived, and that rights are not privileges, the promises of liberty will remain at risk. So, and now I'm calling to action. I wanted people to comment. So, like, have you seen courts ignore constitutional rights in your own experience? Share your story in the comments below. Real change starts when citizens demand accountability. That was the article I wrote. I hope you liked it. And if not, that's all right. I don't care. Prove the program. Yeah, it's proof that
I commented in the trust community that I thought it was excellent literary article again. I love the way your mind thinks, Joe.
Oh, thanks. Oh yeah, I see your comment. Eloquently written article. That's very nice. See, she's poetic too. If they broke their oath to uphold the Constitution, they will be charged. Well, they break their oath. Okay, so I'll run through a quick scenario. All right, let's say you're in traffic court. Okay, with a cop. Okay, now got to ask him some questions here. Right, here's your questions. When you're doing your cross-examination of the police officer, well, what do you say to him? Well, you say, first thing is, officer, well, make sure you have his oath that he took on file. Okay. Have a copy of it in your hand and hand it to him. Right. And say, Officer do-gooder, is this your oath of office? Yes, it is. All right. Can you confirm that's your signature on there? Yes, that's my signature. All right. Can you please, for the court, read your oath of office out loud to the court on the record? All right. So then he reads the oath. You say, okay, thank you very much. Okay. So you swore to uphold the state and federal constitutions, did you not? He goes, yes, I did. And do you take that oath seriously? Of course I do. Okay. Thank you very much. Please cite for me the Fourth Amendment to the federal constitution. Well, I don't know it off the top of my head. Okay. Let the record reflect that the police officer is unaware of the provisions of the Constitution, the very Constitution he swore to uphold. I said, so, officer, since you're unfamiliar with the Fourth Amendment, how could you actually uphold that according to your oath if you're not sure what it is? Well, I mean, he's going to say whatever he wants to say, but the thing is that he could say, "Well, I can always look at it and study it." Like, all right, I have here the Fourth Amendment, and you can pull it up and read it into the record. Okay, so I'm going to read this into the record and submit it into the record. You give it to the clerk to submit into the record, and then you read the Fourth Amendment, right? And I don't have it verbatim, so I'm just going to pull it up real quick and read it to you guys. But then you read the Fourth Amendment, and you're going to like the Fourth Amendment if you don't know it. All right. The cops one says the right of the people to be secured in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. Wait, hold on. I'm pulling it up over here so you guys can see. Shall not be violated. No warrant shall issue, but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. So I read that and I say, officer, do you take that Fourth Amendment lightly? And I go, no, that's very important. Okay. All right. Now, did you have a warrant to search me or seize me? No, but I had probable cause. Okay. What was your probable cause? It says here that no warrant shall be issued except upon probable cause. But in this case means except. Right? If you didn't know that, this is what I mean. Like, you guys gotta learn grammar. But in this case means except. All right? Like, in the situation of expired tags. Yeah, there you go. Oh, well, your tags were expired. Okay. Well, all right. Thank you. What's the warrant though, right? A warrant has to be supported by oath or affirmation. And it has to particularly describe the place to be searched and the person or the things to be seized. Well, they're gonna the prosecutor will whatchamacallit? I'm blanking out here. Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth Amendment, yeah. But what the prosecutor is going to do in this scenario is they're going to object to that line of questioning, and they're going to cite a Supreme Court case that says that the Supreme Court has recognized that they don't have to have a warrant for these things. These are extingent circumstances, right? So you go, okay, fine. So you're not going to win on that, but you kind of cornered the cop into the fact that he doesn't actually know the Fourth Amendment. So he could have been violating your Fourth Amendment right and not even knowing it. Okay. Now, you say, well, officer, you cited, you took my car because you said that my tags were expired. Is that right? He goes, yes. I'm like, okay, thank you. Let the record reflect that the officer's reason for taking my private property was because of expired tags. Officer, are you aware of the Fifth Amendment? Somewhat. All right, please, on the record, please tell us what the Fifth Amendment protects. Well, I don't know off the top of my head. Okay, let the record reflect that the police officer is again unaware of a constitutional amendment that he already sworn to uphold. The Fifth Amendment says no person should be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on the presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in the case of rising land and naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor deprived of life, liberty, or property. Did you take my car? Yes. Without due process of law. Did you take my car without due process of law? Well, I mean, no. All right, please, for the court, explain what due process of law is. Right? He doesn't know. Expired tags are not a crime. Exactly. Thank you. 57 reasons. 57 reasons why it's not a crime. Expired tags are not a crime. There's no injury. There's no injured party. There's no loss. There's no harm done with an expired tag. So when they take your car, it's just theft. Now, there's a real reason for it, okay? I'm going to explain the real reason why they do it and get away with it, okay? Because you don't own the car. It's not yours. This is why, okay? I'm going to show you guys right now because I've gotten into debates with so many people about this and everyone's got it all backwards, all right? But we'll run through this and I'm going to show you why you don't own your car, all right? The title is how, but I'm going to show you the real reason. All right. The certificate of title is a part of it, but it's what it's doing that matters. Okay. All right. So, and everyone's got this wrong. I bet you 99% of people are going to say the wrong answer because they got it backwards. I promise you, everyone's got it backwards. Okay. So now you're running this thing. So now the cop has admitted that he took your property without due process of law. He has admitted that he does not know the Constitution. This guy is not a good witness. Okay, you can crush this case this way. All right, these are things you would be doing in the courtroom, but also using the state constitution. Now you say, okay, so what statute in the state says that you can take my car without due process of law? Oh, this statute right here. Okay. Thank you very much. Let the record reflect. He cited this statute that says that he can take my car. Okay. Good. Officer, can you provide the enacting clause for that statute? I don't know what that is. I'm going to show all you guys right now what an enacting clause is. Okay. This is an important little piece of the puzzle here. And an enacting clause is basically in the state legislature, whenever they pass an act, okay, look at your state. You know what? Someone give me a state. Someone give me a state, any state. Somebody somewhere. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. No one's got one, huh? California, thank you. Okay, we're going to do California real quick. California Constitution. All right, so I'm going to show you something here. All right, this is important. California Constitution. Okay. California Constitution. Oh. Text search. Oh, geez, come on. This is horrible.
I like the abbreviation cons.
Yeah, cons. Yeah, it's all cons. But maybe not do California because I have to go through each and every single. Oh, you know what? Yeah, we'll go. We got it. All right. So here's what we're going to do in California. All right. I'm going to do. All right. The legislator shall enact laws that implement this subdivision. Okay. Now there's a few things that we're looking for in all the state constitutions. One is the enacting clause, which sometimes they don't have. Sometimes it's in enacted. Oh, so look at this. A statute other than a statute of other district enacted by a bill passed by legislators. All right. So this is what they're doing in California, but it's all statute. So this is not the same. No clause, huh? Clause. All right. It's not in this one. What else? Someone said Utah. Let's try Utah. Utah Constitution. And we're going to go to legislative. I like how they call it legislative department. Oh man, why can't we just get one big thing printed out? Like some states do that and some states don't. Download options, I got to do the PDF. Oh, here we go. Okay, we could do it like this. No, it's not in here either. Man, Anyway, the point is this: an enacting clause, right? Maybe we'll just go to here. We'll go to bills. Let's go look at a bill or code, and we're just gonna pick a random one. I'm gonna try to find it in here. General provisions. Come on. Enacted by chapter 41. Okay, so here. This is the actual thing. This title is known. Oh, here it is. So look what it says right here. Be it enacted by the legislator of the state of Utah. Okay. Now this enacting clause is kind of important because without this, there's no legal grounds for this thing to be valid. All right. So when you go to the cop and you say something like him on the stand, like when you're cross-examining him, you ask him for the code that he's utilizing to take your car. Then you turn around and say, okay, thank you very much. Where's the enacting clause for that statute? He has no idea what you're talking about. So if he goes, I don't know what that is. You say, okay, let the record reflect that the police officer doesn't have any evidence that the statute that he's citing has any legal authority. Was it properly enacted? Oh, we don't know. Right? This is an act, right? You see, in Utah, the laws are acts. Okay? That's what they're calling these. So they're acts. In a lot of states, the laws are actually called acts, not statutes. The statutes are just a compilation of the acts. So keep that stuff in mind. When people say the statutes don't apply to people, they're right, you're right and wrong. If you can trace it back to the actual act, then it does apply to the people, but it's only the act itself that applies. The statute, we don't know because the statutes are devoid of these enacting clauses. So this is how you get the cop to admit the fact that he doesn't even know if he's actually acting on real law. Is it real or is it not? What is the enacting clause?
So the enactment, say it again. You said that an act of the enactment makes it be law versus a statute that's not enacted. Do I have that?
Yeah.
Repeat what you'd said, Joe.
So an enacting clause is a clause that's used that the state legislators have to use to verify that this is properly enacted law. Not one statute in the country has an enacting clause attached to it. The acts do, but the statutes do not. They're devoid of that in the statutes. So once you corner them on that enacting clause, they got nothing. I'm going to pull it up here on YouTube. Enact. Where is it? Enacting clause. Here we go. I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. Or I guess not. Oh, here we go. Finally. All right. Enacting clause. That part of a statute which declares its enactment and serves to identify it as an act of legislation proceeding from the proper legislative authority. If there is no enacting clause, it doesn't have proper legislative authority, and thus it's invalid. Yeah, they literally fall apart right in front of you. I don't know. I had this cop like this, man. The guy's he's just had his head down the whole time, and he's doing this with his thumbs the whole time because he couldn't even look at me. The guy felt like shit. He felt so bad about it and felt so terrible. He couldn't even look at me in the face. And what's funny is I saw that cop around for another month after that court case, and all of a sudden he's gone. I don't know what happened to the guy. I don't know if it had anything to do with me or not, but I mean, I shredded the guy in the courtroom. I ripped him to pieces. The guy couldn't look at me. When I walked down the street passing him, when he was doing like standing out there for the construction work, he did everything he could to look away from me. Like, oh, I can't look at this guy. He couldn't confront me. And then like a month later, he was gone. Never seen him again. I don't know what happened to him. He might have gotten in big trouble for messing with me. I don't know. I have no idea. maybe he was a jerk or something. They fired him. I don't know. Various formulas are used for this clause, such as being enacted by the people of the state of Illinois, represented in the General Assembly, being enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America and Congress assembled. Right? That's the one for the U.S. The federal government. Right? And you don't see that in the U.S. codes, do you? Because the codes don't apply. But the statutes do. That's why the statutes at large are admissible evidence of laws in court. The General Assembly do act a section of a statute denouncing an offense is sometimes spoken of the enacting clause. Okay, so this enacting clause is a big deal, and if you corner that dude, yeah, that cop probably moved to California. My charge was driving without a license and no registration. All right, they didn't charge me for no insurance because I had an insurance bond, so they dropped that one. Is there an enacting clause that they can use if no crime? Well, if there's no crime, then there's no enacting clause, But that was an easy one, The cop didn't know. I said, well, what's the code for the license? And he goes, I'm not totally sure. I don't know off the top of my head. He told me he didn't know off the top of his head. I said, that's fair. I said, it's this code right here. And I read it to him. He goes, yeah, that's the one. I said, okay, thank you. So let the record reflect that the police officer was not fully aware of which statute he was utilizing, but he has agreed that this is the statute. I said, so where's the enacting clause for this statute? I don't know what that is. Oh, you don't know what an enacting clause is? No, sir, I do not. That's what he said. He says, no, sir, I do not. I said, okay. So enacting clause, I basically told him the definition. I said, it just shows that the act of the legislation comes from proper legislative authority. I said, so you're not sure whether or not this statute has the proper enacting clause to show that it has proper legislative authority? And he went, no, sir. I said, let the record reflect that the officer admitted that he's enforcing statutes and he doesn't know if they have the proper legislative authority. Objection. No. The prosecutor said something. I said, and I objected to the objection. No, I wasn't speeding. I had my own plates on the car. Right? I put private plates on the car. I drive around with private plates and no license. So, that's because I don't want to contract with these guys. I feel like this knowledge can be used in bigger. Yeah, well, I have used it in bigger ways. All right. Can you beat? Oh, yeah, of course. The speeding ticket's easy. Okay, speeding ticket is even easier, right? If you got your license, registration, insurance, and all that other stuff, and the cop got you for a speeding, you say, all right, officer, please explain to the court the technological functions of the radar gun that you use to determine the speed. And just wait for him to say, I don't know anything about that. You say, okay, thank you. Let the record reflect the officer does not know how the radar gun works. Says, all right, so if you don't know how the radar gun works, how can you determine that it's giving accurate readings? Well, we do a calibration test and all that stuff. All right, but if you're doing a calibration test, then you should understand the mechanisms of how it works. Otherwise, how do you know you're calibrating it correctly? Maybe the guy who showed you doesn't know how to calibrate it right because he doesn't know how the technology works either. So even when they say, oh, it was all calibrated and blah, 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 this bullshit. Yeah. How do you know you were taught correctly on how to calibrate it if you don't know the technology of it? The whole argument falls apart right there. Because they come in, oh, it was calibrated. This is rehearsed for them. Well, the radar gun was properly calibrated. I calibrated it that morning at this time, and I did this and blah, 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 that. It's like he's reading a script, right? Yeah, the deeds for the roads, that's another one. I've done that, and they didn't like that one, and the judge got mad at me. He goes, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. I said, it doesn't matter. And I wasn't asking the judge. I was asking the prosecution to bring it up, and the judge started yelling at me. I said that to him. I said, sir, I wasn't asking you. I was asking the prosecutor if they have a deed to the road. I said, do you have a deed or a bill of sale that proves that you own the road? That doesn't matter. The judge jumped out of his chair screaming that right away. Like, I wasn't asking you. I'm asking him. um, oh, yeah, how to have an argument. Hi, I'd like to have an argument. Yeah. But yeah, that's the enacting clause. So once you get those guys on that, that's it. You know, then they're going to be digging around looking for the enacting clause. And by the way, when you go read the actual acts, sometimes they're written a little different than the statutes. So the statute no longer applies anymore when they find out that the actual law that has the enacting clause on it, it says something a little different. Well, so it doesn't apply. So I did a jurisdictional challenge on my DUI case because where I got pulled over at. Yeah, you know, the whole thing is you're always testing jurisdiction with these people. Territorial, subject matter, personal jurisdiction. You know, the traffic stuff, they'll always say they have subject matter jurisdiction, right? And you say, well, what about in personam jurisdiction? Do you have jurisdiction over me? Yes. Yeah, where's the proof? Are you? No. Oh, I have the YouTube up. Yeah, YouTube is up because I'm reading the comments as we're going along, if that's what you're wondering about. But yeah, I have the YouTube stuff up, which I lost. Now I don't know where it is. So everyone who's watching on YouTube, I lost you guys. All right, but that was the enacting clause for that. And I totally lost it. Totally.
So William's wanting to know how to move the case from quasi court to federal court.
Well, you got to get a certified copy of the case and then bring it into federal court and then tell them you're moving the court case to there. Have you just looked into? No. No, I haven't looked into. No, I have my own private. I have my own plates on the car. They don't bother me anymore. I've been through court and hell with these guys enough, so I think they've kind of let it go for me because I've just created. I think I've created too many problems for them. So yeah, there's scramblers out there that'll give inaccurate speeding. Yeah, but the speeding ticket stuff is easy. If you show up to court, by the way, if you show up to court and the judge or let's say the cop doesn't show up, you've won the case. Okay, you've already won the case because they have no witness testimony now. So that's one way to beat it is just to show up. Hope the cop doesn't show up. If he does, cross-examine the crap out of him and get him to explain. You know, if he goes, "Well, I didn't use a radar gun. I chased you." I said, "So wait, does that mean that you had to increase your speed in order to catch up to me?" How could he get a proper reading how fast you're going if he had to catch up to you? That means he was speeding. Because what you uncovered is far more useful than just not wanting to pay a speeding ticket. Oh, yeah. I understand that. Thank you. I appreciate that. The cop didn't show and the judge gave a new date. No. You just say, no, dismiss it right now. There's no witness? No. This is my court case. It's not his. It's not his. The prosecutor's still here. The prosecutor's here, right? The prosecutor's here? Yeah, the prosecutor's here. Okay. Prosecutor doesn't have his witness? Nope. All right. Well, dismiss it. No witness? No. We're going to do it for another day. I don't think so. No. No leeway on this. Dismiss it right now. I can't come back. I'm not a resident of the state. I have a right to a speedy trial. You're violating my right to a speedy trial. No, dismiss it right now. There's no witness. I'm out. That's it. I have a right to speedy trial. You just violated my right to speedy trial. No, you lost jurisdiction. Any jurisdiction you may have had over me, you've lost by violating my right to a speedy trial. Dismiss it right now. I'm out the door. Bye. Right? That's what you got to do. All right? You got to get crazy. You know, you got to be belligerent, but in a very nice way. No, you say that in the court. Well, if you showed up to court and the cop wasn't there, yeah, you can file that into court now, I guess. But the fact is you probably already agreed to it. And so because you did a verbal agreement with them, they got you on that. On Title 4D, what do you mean 4D? Title 4, you talk about U.S. Code Title 4 and then Section D. Is that what you're talking about? I don't know what he's talking about. Some dude just did this to me the other day, by the way, on Telegram. He goes, I don't know what he's child support. I'm not going to talk about child support or see. If you got to pay child support, just write a promissory note, guys. Let's make life simple. These kids are innocent, right? Trying to get around child support's BS. Just write a promissory note and send it in. Call it a day. All right. Just pay with the promissory note. That's my opinion. What do you say for riding around with private plates? What do you and no license? Well, I think I just went over all that. You know, what do you say for riding around with private plates and no license? Literally, that whole thing I went through about the enacting clause and questioning the cop on things. That is what you're saying. I mean, you can stand on your right to travel, but they'll laugh you out the door. They'll laugh all the way to the bank with your money on that one. They'll tell you, well, that doesn't apply here. Oh, you have the right to travel, sure, on your happy little feet, like a bunch of scumbags because they're revenue generators. So what you do is you got to prove that they're harming you, okay, and that you can sue them for the harm. And there's a bunch of different ways that we've handled traffic cases with no license or registration stuff, and it's an uphill battle though, the whole way. But after a while, if they get to know you and they realize that you're not going to bend the knee, and they realize that you know what you're doing, you know what you're talking about, they don't want you in the courtroom anymore for a number of reasons. One, you're only going to get better at handling these guys, and that scares them. They don't want people getting too good at handling the court system. Okay, that's a bad thing for them. So they'll stop bringing you into the courtroom if you get really good at handling the courts. Okay. The other thing is, especially if you know how to start working around their system and using things like trademarks and the assumed name in order to rebut the presumption that you're the legal entity, their whole argument falls apart. They can't act upon you anymore. Also, operating through trusts, it protects you from even having to go in the courts in the first place. So doing the status correction with the passport, right? Doing the assumed name and operating out of trust are all these protections that prevent the government from encroaching upon your rights. Okay. And so those are the things I do. When I go into court, I just question the officer to death. And if the officer doesn't show up, then I demand for a dismissal due to my right to a speedy trial being denied to me. So they grant it. They normally will grant it because they don't want to deal with it again. I'm telling you, those low courts, those guys don't even want to be there. They hate their job. All right. The only thing they like about their job is they get to make lots of money and they get to feel like they're in charge of everybody. I'm going to boss you around. But if you make it a little difficult for them, they don't want you around. They want you out. Right? I said, dismiss this case, no more dates. It's been 2 years going on at this court. That's when I show them. Oh, yeah. Yeah, see, Paul's got the same thing going on. But it is time for me to go. I know I took up the extra 30 minutes because we lost in the beginning, but I am going to have to be going. I'm going to have to be going because my day is my day now. I don't even think, running an ad is a good thing, but once you have it, you have it. So you can just utilize it now. You don't have to wait until you run an ad in the paper to utilize the assumed name. Okay, well, either wait for another day or leave. All right, bye. I guess we're in agreement then. There's no more case. See ya. All right? Like, all right. Well, thank you, Your Honor. Let the record reflect that I'm leaving the court and this case is no longer being pursued. All right? Dismissed for want of prosecution. Bye. What a joke. Anyway, guys, people on TikTok, I appreciate you guys hanging out here. YouTube, always appreciate you guys as well. The trust community. You guys are like family here, so I thank you guys for hanging out. But by the way, if you guys want to be part of the lives and come on and conversate, you would have to be a member of the Trust community. To do that, go to my profile on TikTok, and you'll find the Linktree link. It's like the first link on Linktree. All right, to join in, and you can be part of these calls and all the private calls that we have as well, where I go over how to utilize trust law and stuff like that. All right. I do also do one-on-one consultations, right? Or like suggestion meetings, right? And we can you can hit me up on there and we can do one-on-ones if you have certain issues, okay? That's also in the account in the Linktree link. So that's also on Linktree. So make sure you utilize that Linktree. Plus, I'm a musician. I have music. If you like music, yeah, I can help with that stuff too, with mortgages and stuff. So hit me up with that. I can't make guarantees. I can do the best I can. You can do, the problem with mortgages is that you can do everything right and still lose. Okay. You can put all your ducks in a row, have everything laid out perfectly, correctly, and you still lose because the system relies on the land to always be tied up with banks, right, in order for them to use the land as collateral to print Federal Reserve notes. Okay. So that's one of the issues with that. Oh, that's an interesting concept. Call the police a constable, because that creates a verbal contract, making a constable, which protects men and women. I like
That's in
that.
Texas. Constable's in Texas.
Well, maybe David's in Texas. All right, but that's a cool idea. I like that one. I'm not against that. All right. Yeah, they want controversy. Yeah, Gary's right. I'm looking. I'm sorry, YouTube. I missed you guys for a little bit, but I'm going back. You could do a maritime lien. Yeah, they want controversy. That's true. So you come in there. There's no controversy here. Who's the implied surety? That's another way you can handle these court cases. Do stuff like that. Why not just do ABC on the mortgage, then an OID? Because you got to do it the right way. You have to do them in a certain order, and you have to do them a certain way because you have to show all sides of the ledgering. If you do it the wrong way, it's not going to do anything. I've gotten it on the credit report showing that the houses were discharged. So the way I do it does work. But like I said, that's only one piece. That's one piece of the puzzle. And like I said, you could do everything right and still not win. But there are certain things that I've been doing that is working. So I'm not going to talk about it on here because the second you talk about stuff like that on these public forums, it stops working. So, and this is for the protection of everybody, not gatekeeping. We found out that when you start talking about some of these private processes on public forums, that the private processes stop working suddenly. So we don't talk about it specifically on here. All right. I was wondering, no one brought it up. I've been talking about this court stuff because I've been working with some people on court things, and I think that's one of the biggest issues we have, right? If the judicial system worked in the way the founding fathers wanted it to work, then the lawmakers could write any fucking laws they want, and we would go into court and argue our rights and win every time. But the judicial system is hell-bent on creating revenue using the people. And that's why a lot of the focus is on that, because if the judicial system doesn't protect and uphold your rights, then you don't have any. And that's the last line right there. Okay? That is the last line. Legislators create it, the executive division enforces it, and the judicial system decides on the legality of it. That's why. But thank you guys for hanging out. I appreciate all of you, and I'll be back next week at 10 a.m. Eastern time for another live stream on TikTok, YouTube. I'll see you guys later. All right.
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome. You guys have a great weekend.
You too.